There is this fellow called Victorious Putin. Vladimir means victorious. And he decided to attack Ukraine. There's no question about it. It was in February of this year. Prior to that, in November, which I don't see any of the media talking about, November of 2021, the United States and Ukraine had signed a strategic partnership. The generation that is in power in Russia are those who saw the USSR break up and they still lament it. The generation that is in power in Europe and the United States especially is a generation that saw the breakup of the Soviet Union and they're still exulting. Therefore, what happens? The war begins and that super senior gentleman declares that Putin must go and also says that he's a war criminal. Ma'am, once you have threatened him with the possibility that after he leaves, you'll haul him up before the International Criminal Court in The Hague as a war criminal, you think he's going to go easily? By saying these things, you are telling the fellow, look, carry on, buddy, because the day you decide not to, we're going to get you. And so the military industrial congressional complex in the US gets a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars, which, by the way, the Ukrainians will pay for. It's not gifted. Do you know during the Second World War, since you live in England, the US got involved. The war began in September of 39. The US got involved 2.25 years later after the Japanese did all those funny things in Pearl Harbor. And then the Germans also declared war, etc., etc. Where did Britain and the Soviet Union, after Germany attacked the USSR, where did they get their equipment and weapons from? From the United States. It was called Lend-Lease. It wasn't gifted. And the last repayment was in 2006. The last repayment to the United States for the equipment that it had supplied. So the same thing will happen with Ukraine. Several generations will pay for it. So once you have said that Putin is a war criminal, a terrible fellow, we have to put him up, but he's digging in. Why did he attack? Because for him, it was an existential issue. He was preoccupied with preserving the unity of the Russian Federation. He had seen what happened to the Soviet Union. And he'll do whatever it takes. He's made that absolutely clear. He said, I'm not bluffing. I'll use any weapons that I have. He hasn't said I'll use nuclear weapons. He says I'll use any weapon, whatever I have, to preserve the integrity of my country, because for me, it was a question of survival. Now, by invading Ukraine, did Russia in any way threaten the safety of the United States? Was it planning to gobble up California or Oregon or Arizona? No, there was no threat. But the threat is to Russia. Now winter is coming in. We are talking on the 28th of September 2022. Winter is setting into Europe. Already many European friends, and I have many, say, look, why are we fighting this nonsense for a nation that is not even a member of the European Union? I mean, till a year ago, whatever happened in Ukraine was no concern of mine. Why should I continue to suffer? It's a European war. I'm not involved. I was very happy with my heating. Now the Germans are saying you can only bathe twice a week or whatever. Lights have to be dimmed, etc. They're not used to this kind of hardship. I am. So therefore, the one issue that Vladimir Putin has used to get his country behind him is when he talked of that 2014 coup, which dismissed the legitimately elected government in Kiev. And then when he said that it was neo-Nazis who had taken over. The moment you use the term Nazi, it strikes a chord among the Russian people. Because the Soviet Union lost 30 million people during the Second World War, made much greater sacrifices than anybody else. The West claims victory, but it was really the USSR that broke the back of Cherie Adolf Hitler when he decided to attack, etc. We all know that. So he referred to this, and he said that I am now trying to keep the neo-Nazis away from my doorstep, and I will not allow Western alliances to come to my doorstep. He had logic on his side. The West had emotion and sentiment on its side. Otherwise, when other countries attack smaller ones, why don't you get involved? I mean, the Chinese are doing all kinds of funny things, and everybody hums and haws and then does nothing, goes back to sleep. We took a stand when they attacked us in Galwan. We thrashed them. And that was, again, a milestone in the world's perception of China. The People's Liberation Army of China was exposed as a paper dragon. They ran away. And that nation, I lost 20 of my sons. We gave them state funerals. China has not even acknowledged its casualties. They say we lost 4. Then some newspaper said 8. Then another one said 12. So they go up in increments of 4. They lost over 100 people. But what kind of a nation that you can't give a decent burial to your own sons? So what we are seeing in Ukraine, nobody wants peace. Putin has achieved his objectives. This referendum, etc., that he's doing in 4 areas. You know, now they are saying we'll impose, and the referendum is in favor of Russia, so he will absorb these areas. So all the Western chaps, including that super senior fellow, are saying we'll impose more sanctions. You've already imposed 5,000 sanctions. What more? Will you tell the air not to go to Moscow so that he can't breathe? Or will you tell the sun to stop shining? So there's no sunlight in Russia. What more sanctions will you impose? He doesn't care. This is all bluff. This is for domestic consumption. So they don't want peace because it keeps the wheels of the armaments factories whirring. Putin doesn't want peace because he's achieved his objective and he will now calm down after this. The West doesn't want it, even though they are hurting. Now they are beginning to want it. The rest of the world says this is not a time for war. That's what our Prime Minister Narendra Modi told Vladimir Putin in Samarkand. He said this is not the time for war. And the West was ecstatic about this. Well, we tell the whole world this is not the time for war. If we've told Mr. Putin it's nothing very special. The only person, by the way, who wants peace in Ukraine is this fellow who lives in Rome. His name is the Pope. I don't know which Pope he is at the moment, but he's the guy who prays for peace. That's all he can do, pray. And I recall that great conversation between Joseph Stalin and Winston Churchill, where they were talking about what had happened, etc. And then he asked that Poland was, when the Germans invaded Poland, why did Britain declare war on Germany? He said, well, you know, Poland is a Catholic country. And the Pope was very upset. So we declared war. And then Joseph Stalin asked the counter question. All right, Mr. Prime Minister, how many divisions does the Pope have? That you got so upset about this. To which I'm told, I don't know if this is true, when the Pope was informed about this, he said, tell our son, Joseph, that my divisions are in heaven. And he'll meet them over there. I don't know if this is true or not. But the reality today is, ma'am, that nobody, except those who are not involved, not directly involved, and that's the developing world who are suffering soaring inflation, food crisis, fertilizer crisis, energy crisis. They want peace. Nobody else seems to.
Interesting. What if that's such a different perspective to what I'm reading every day in the news? So
you're reading that one Ukrainian killed 50,000 Russians and they've got new weapons and he fired one of these artillery shells and 10,000 Russians died. Forget about all that.
Yeah. It's so thank you. That's I think the audience will benefit from a different perspective. That's essential to see the other side, because I'm just tired. I'm just really tired of looking at the Western.
Absolutely. Everybody is tired. You know, you tell your adversary that I will defeat you and then I'll execute you. The fellow will fight like hell because he's going to die anyway. He's going to make sure that you don't defeat him.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
When you're threatening to take him, you declared him a war criminal, you say, well, I'll show you now. And if there's a war criminal, after what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know who it is. I don't need to take names.
Yeah, of course, we know.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.